Hello, this is George Demaree again for another version of Money Matters. But today I really want to start with prayer today. So let us all pray. Father God, we're asking you for guidance. Please help me to say the right things to help to give our people financial information that will help them. Let me be a vessel that they see you through me and that we're doing the right thing. To let them know that money is not the root of all evil, but the mismanagement and the misuse of money is the root of all evil. And again, let everything that we do be in your name. In your great Son, Jesus Christ's name, amen. Now let's move on today. Remember what Money Matters does. First of all, we promote financial literacy. So let's talk a little bit about financial literacy. The great majority of Americans are just not financial literate, or may I use this word, better word, are financially misinformed. They don't really realize the things they need to do in order to put themselves in a great position as it relates to their money. And it's not your fault. Financial literacy is not really taught in school. And for the most part, if you happen to grow up in a family who didn't have a lot of money, and most of us didn't, then your parents could not teach you financial literacy. Let me tell you something that's going on that was surprising me once I did some research. I remember most everything that I share with you, either I found out through a lot of research or I found out or I've done through my years in the business. And before I go there, I think it would be important for me to share with you who I am. Again, my name is George Demaree. I managed radio stations or sales teams for radio stations for over 30 years. The companies I worked for in my 40-year career did millions and millions and millions of dollars in revenue. So it has helped to put me in a position, some things I failed in and some I succeeded in helping to give you people good information as it relates to your money. I am a father of three. I have three, I like to say, very successful kids. I have a great wife who helps to keep me grounded, and a child of God. So basically in 3 minutes, that's who I am. But again, let's get back to financial literacy. Do you realize that 45% of Americans, and this was done before the pandemic, this was done in December 2019, 45% of Americans did not have $1,000 saved. Now think about that. Not $1,000 saved, 45% of Americans. And let me give you another statistic. 81% of Americans had $5,000 or less saved. Now let's think about this dynamic. Here we are, according to what we read and what we know, that our unemployment rate was at the lowest amount maybe in history, at least compared to any other time in history. The stock market was at an all-time high. The rich keeps getting richer, but yet 81% of Americans had less than $5,000 saved. Who was really getting rich during this period? I don't think it was the 85%. So that's why it's real important to understand money and to be more financially literate. Another example, my father, I have a great father, but he never had a lot of money. And I'm amazed that he did what he did with the money that he had. I mean, he owned a house, he always had cars, we always had food in the refrigerator, but yet he never made a lot of money. Though I would consider that being financially literate as compared to some other folks, but yet could he really give me information on how to invest money, how to look for good opportunities? No, because you can only give people to what you've been exposed to. So this is what Money Matters does. Money Matters helps to expose you to different ideas and different ways of handling your money and how to think when it comes to managing your money. The next thing that we try to do at Money Matters is we share business and employment opportunities. Over the last number of weeks, we've had some of the more successful African American business leaders who were guests for Money Matters. We had Walter Shannon at E&S Galleries. We had Kevin Shern at Superior Maintenance. And we had Winston Pittman at Winston Pittman Enterprises. Now let me share something about all three of those men. There's three common denominators that all three had, all completely different industry. One in art, one in maintenance, and one in the automobile industry. But let me tell you what they all had that was similar. One, it's no different than what's in the book that was written by Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich. And it said, all successful people, one, they persevere. As a matter of fact, the book has a whole chapter on perseverance. And two, they are determined to be successful. So these men talked about things that they did to help them to persevere during the tough times, and the things they did to help them to continue to be determined to be successful. And let me share one other thing these men had. These men had successful mates. They had mates that pushed them, that helped them. Alma Pittman is the wife of Winston Pittman. Ivy Shern, the wife of Kevin Shern, and Kathy Shannon, the wife of Walter Shannon. And all those women have a common denominator. They were all there to help, to push, but yet to be great supporters in helping their businesses to grow. So it is important that we share what other people did in order to be successful, to help you when you're making decisions on opening up your own business. The next thing that we do at Money Matters is we try to help you to think strategically when you're making business decisions. Last week we talked about taking emotions out of making business decisions. It's very difficult. I was talking to a person right before this meeting, and he said that a lot of his purchases that he makes are by impulse. Well, again, that is not by accident, because marketers are so good at targeting certain folk that it's no mistake that you see ads that are targeted toward you. Again, they know what you like, what you don't like, they know your price points, so it makes it easy for you to make decisions on emotions. And I mentioned to you last week, use the what I call the law of 24. Never make an impulsive decision. Give it 24 hours. Go home, sleep on it. If you think it's a good decision, then do it. It's important that we continue to share information. I talked to a person on a member of St. Stephen, and she was in a quandary. She had a major financial crisis, was wondering how to get over it. And we sit and we talked, and I gave her some ideas. I said, for an example, she was concerned about her insurance. When you have insurance, no matter what it is, bid it out. Do not stick with the same insurance company just because of a relationship. I know that's very difficult, but I'm telling you, bid it out, and bid it out every year, whether it be your auto insurance, home insurance, or whatever. Always look for alternatives. She said she had a hard time getting unemployment, that she went and she applied. Well, let me tell you what she did, and I want to share this with everybody. Her daughter came to pick her up. She drove to Frankfurt, and she made sure that she could sit there and see somebody before she got out of there, because there's many people on that waiting list that can't get in to get their unemployment, and I believe that her employment is on the way. I talked to another person, that same person that I talked to right prior to this meeting. And he said, George, I mean, how do you save money? You know, what do you do to save money? And I said, if you want to save money, you can't touch it. What do you mean by that? You can't touch it. I said, if money hits your hand, the chances you spending that money is really high. Come up with a system where $25, $30, $50, whatever, goes into an account every week that you can't touch. I said, it's no different than paying Uncle Sam. If you can pay taxes before you can even touch your money, then if Uncle Sam is the first person that you pay, why can't you be the second person that you pay? And I told him, said, put a money in an account that is difficult for you to go and get. I said, money grows exponentially. He said, well, what do you mean by that, George? I said, money grows exponentially. When you start to save money, the first couple of years, it doesn't seem as though it's growing very much. But over time, if you start saving money and you save 25 to 50 bucks a week, and you do it every week starting at age 25 or age 30, and when you get to be my age, I'll be 64 next month, then that money continues to grow, because 10% or 5% of $5,000 and 10% or 5% of $50,000 is a whole different number. And that's how money grows. And I said, so you've got to be disciplined to put money away. That don't put yourself in a position that these 81% of Americans have done before the pandemic, that they were not in a position to take care of themselves for no more than a month. Which again is the reason that this pandemic has been so devastating to certain people. That people were living literally paycheck to paycheck. Discipline yourself to save no matter what. The next thing that we do at Money Matters, and it's also very, very important, is to help you with your credit worthiness. Everybody needs credit. Everybody, no matter who you are, no matter what you're doing, there will be a time where you will need to borrow money. Now, will you borrow money at 2, 3, and 4%, which is the going rate now for people with good credit? Or will you borrow money at 10, 12, or 15%? It's a total different number. In order to be credit worthy, it's about trust. We talked about this in our staff meeting for our staff meeting for our church staff this week, and the importance of trust and being trustworthy. When you pay your bills on time, it tells everybody that you're trustworthy. Now, remember earlier, we talked about a lady who's having problems paying her bills based on the pandemic. She also, another bit of information, she was a substitute teacher. She's in her 60s, and the last thing she wanted to do was to go back into a school setting with the pandemic taking off the way that it is. So I shared with her, whenever you can't pay a bill, and I've said this maybe 3 or 4 other times, so I want people to really hear me when I say this. Whenever you can't pay a bill, be proactive. Be proactive. What we're trying to do is help you to be offensive rather than defensive. There's a book called Sun Tzu. And what it does, it uses the art of war and how people use strategy of war and how they can use it in business. And this is what it said. This is one of my favorite quotes in the book. It says, in order to have a good offense, first of all, you need information. This is what we're doing. got to have information. The next thing is you need to have preparation. Be prepared. I call it when preparation meets opportunity, because you never know when the opportunity will present itself. So always be, and if you can, be over-prepared. And finally, be skilled. What kind of skills do you have? How can you can take your skills and turn them into benefits for you? Remember that we're looking for ways of being offensive rather than defensive. Who saw this pandemic coming? Nobody did. Nobody, as a matter of fact, up and through the early part of March, no one even thought that it would get to where it is today. We didn't. I remember watching a program on the news, and it showed people in South Korea in masks. Everybody had on masks in South Korea. And it said it helped to keep the pandemic down. And it made me think, will people in America, will we be wearing masks? Absolutely we are. So continue to wear your mask and to help to keep people safe. So again, credit worthiness. Pay your bills. It is important that if you can have a number that's 680 or above. 680 or above, get your good interest rate. 650 and below, get you not such an attractive interest rate. Or anything under 600, you may not even be able to even borrow money. Again, every business owner, we talked about E&S galleries, we talked about superior maintenance, we talked about the Pittman Industries. Trust me, all three of those companies at one point had to borrow money in order for them to be successful. And they had to borrow money at an interest rate that would not put them out of business. And finally, on this program, we want to talk about becoming debt-free. Debt-free. It's called breaking free from financial slavery. Debt and a bad credit number will get in the way of you buying a home. Those are the two things, and income, those are the three things people look for in being able to finance a home. So let's just take a couple of minutes to talk about some tips on buying a home. Let me tell you what happens. This is for first-time home buyers. So all of you folks who have a home, just share this with some folks who don't. Because I'm telling you, rent these days is in many ways even more expensive than a mortgage payment would be. My own oldest son was paying rent a few years ago, and the rent he was paying is right around what he now pays for a mortgage payment. And I'm gonna tell you, he's a happy homeowner today, and I am happy for him. First thing you do is you go and you find a financial advisor that you trust. Not a financial advisor that's looking just to make money on you, but a financial advisor that you trust. A mortgage broker, a bank, a credit union, a representative there that has your best interest at heart. And there are a few. There are a number who are members of our church. So do it, and let me tell you what they're going to look for. Tell you what they're going to look for. The first thing they're going to do is they're going to pull your credit number. For most conventional loans, you need to have a credit number of around 680. Most, right? The next thing they're going to do is they're going to look at your debt to income ratio. Now, what's debt to income ratio? It is the total amount of your debt. You're talking about car payment, rent, any other outstanding loans, minimum payments on credit is based on minimum payment on credit cards, divided divided by your total gross income. So most people want that debt to income ratio to be around 43, 45%. Anything over that gives them a red flag, all right? So keep it there. So there's another reason that it's important to have a good credit number. Because remember this, when you buy a car, if you bought a car and you pay $16,000 for a car, and that interest rate was at 8% over a 60-month period, that payment is about $345 a month. If you bought that same car, if you borrowed $16,000 to pay that same car, that payment is about $314 a month. So that's $30 to $40 against your debt to income ratio. You see, it all comes in concert with one another. That's why it's important to pay your bills and pay your bills on time. Let me give you the name of a company who was a great partner at St. Stephen Baptist Church in the Family Life Center. And when you walk in the building in the Family Life Center, you see their machines sitting there. And that's Park Federal Credit Union. And their representative is a vice president, fraternity brother of mine. His name is Raymond Smith. And I talked to Raymond this morning. As a matter of fact, he's going to be on the show next week. And Raymond says that they're still giving loans, mortgages, if you have a number that's 580. That's 580. And if you're trying to buy a home in the West End, they're giving money at 125% of value. So let me say this. This is a marvelous opportunity for you to become a homeowner. Look for it. Look for ways. Be disciplined. Most people want you to put down a minimum of 3%. Tell you what that looks like. If you bought a house at $160,000 and you put down 3%, you would need $7,800 as a down payment. If your interest rate was 3.5, because that's pretty much where they are now on a 30-year note, your payment would be less than $1,100 a month. That's tax, interest, insurance, and PMI. Because anything under a 20% down payment, for most of the time, requires a mortgage insurance policy. And I'm thinking that Park Federal may even require that, but we can verify that next week. The next thing I want to talk about, I want to target toward millennials and the young people. There is $1.5 trillion in student loan debt, outstanding student loan debt. And I think that's a shame. I think if we have students, young people, who want to go to college, who are trying to better themselves, they should not be strapped with student loans when they get out of college. So it's almost double taxation because somebody's making a lot of money on student loans, because the interest rate on student loans are anywhere between, on the low end, if it's a variable rate, 3-4%, on a high end, 12 to 15%, depending on your credit number. So let's take a couple of minutes. Let me just take a couple of minutes to help you, to give you information about student loans. One is, there's a standard student loan. In standard student loans, it's a 10-year loan, interest rates around 4%. It's an equal amount of money over 10 years. You can pay it off. Sometimes, based on what you owe, they can be relatively expensive. There's other student loans that are income-based. And those student loans are income-based, but usually they're between 20 and 25 years. You pay a ton of interest. Now, the good news, after 20 or 25 years, depending on which one you use, they're forgiven, but they're not really forgiven because by then you've paid it off anyway. You just paid everything but interest. So you'd have to watch it. There are some loans that they call graduated loans, where it'll be a 25-year loan or 20-year loan, where the first 2 years you pay a small amount. The next 2 years, every 2 years, it goes up some, up into the 25th year. Now, those are good to have if you think that over time you're going to be making more money, because at a $35,000 note, with one of those loans, approximately your payment is going to be around $117 a month. But those last few payments will be as much as $350. So there's a lot of ways of doing it. But again, now think about this. Vote. Which political party do you think is going to attack student loans? Can you imagine the impact the economy would have if that $1.5 trillion in student loans was forgiven? 1.5 trillion. What would those people who are making those payments between $117 and $500 a month or more, what would they do with that money? Well, first of all, it would put them in a better position to buy homes, because remember, that affects the debt-to-income ratio. It greatly affects the debt-to-income ratio. It'll put them in a position to buy cars. All that 1.5 trillion would be funneled right back into the community, and it won't be a double tax. So you have folks, you have young people, you have millennials. Now think about some of those millennials. They will still be paying on student loans when their children are going to college. There's something wrong with that. This country's got to be better than that. Vote. Vote for folks who are going to help young people who I believe is our greatest asset. Now, what do you do? What do you do if you need to change your loan plan? Well, first of all, do research. Find out something that fits for you, okay? Contact your provider. Complete the paperwork. Check payment dates. Now, listen to me, guys, with student loans. If you can't pay your student loan, get on the phone and come up with a payment plan. Try your best to not allow that to ding your credit. Remember, when it comes to money, in my opinion, nothing is more important. There are some things equally important, but nothing is more important than your credit rating. That you've got to keep your number, because you will need to buy a car one day. And there are other companies out there that will help you with student loans, some private companies. Accent, Sallie Mae, Discover. Their interest rates, depending on your credit worthiness, is anywhere between, for fixed rates, is anywhere between 4% and 12%. And finally today, tell you what we're going to do. So many other things I want to talk about, but we'll finish with this. This is the most competitive job market probably in our history, because now we have all these folks still getting out of college. Our unemployment rate now is as high as it's ever been. It doesn't look like this pandemic is going away anytime soon. So I think it's about to get worse before it gets better. So it's important, young people, or even older people, if you're looking for a job, how do you set yourself apart from everybody else? Remember, a part of what we do at Money Matters is we look for business and employment opportunities. So this is what you do. Let me give you some technique I think you can use. You need to set yourself apart from everybody else. How can you differentiate yourself from everybody else looking for the same job? How can you do it? One, create a personal website. Create a personal website. How many people have created a personal website? Two, beef up your LinkedIn. Add a link that goes into your website. Articles written, presentations. Upload oral presentations that you made so people can see the kind of communicator that you are. Do networking virtually. Create what they call a mentor map. Get a minimum of 3 mentors that can help you and can help you to introduce you to folks. Customize your resume that fits the employer that you're trying to get to. And finally, and it's a lot more, but just today, for the sake of time, finally do your homework. Never go and interview with anybody without looking them up in LinkedIn. Find out about the person that's doing the interview. Know as much as you can about the company that you want to go work for, and to be able to ask educated questions when you get in the interview. So that's our program today for Money Matters. I hope it's been informative. I hope it helps. And every week, we want to give you some kind of information that you and your family can use. Remember, it is not your fault. Information is king. And like in Sun Tzu, 1 is information, 2 is preparation, and 3 is skill set. Thank you and have a great day.